and then you can start. Hello, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome everyone, and thank you very much for participating in the 12th Spanish Passive House Conference. This is the last block of the conference. There's not long to go till the end. This year we've had a different conference, but I'm sure that everyone is enjoying it, and in particular, I would like to thank all of you as speakers and everyone else who's following online or via streaming. It's been a very enriching block of presentations, with a presentation of both new and older or less new things. I would like to start a round of questions because we don't have much time, and we're going to try to do this in order of speakers. The first question is for Andres and Alvaro. I'd like to thank you for your presentation. The ISO standard clearly establishes this new standard on filters to simplify matters. Well, we were very comfortable with the F7 and all of the previous rules, but the presentation that you gave compared filtering, the orange filter, which was passive house, which is an MPE 50%, 1516, with an F9. And a question came in from Sergio Diaz, who asked if the calculation that you performed regarding the consumption increase due to the loss of load of the filter, is it empirical, that calculation, or is it based on the ventilator's curve? Okay, yes, to answer the question, this is Andres. We used the ALDES software calculation or calculation software, and in the software you can input flow data, flow variables, which allowed us to obtain this power value. The load loss curve that we obtained for filter was obtained based on laboratory data, which allowed us to obtain that filtering value, and the pressure curve that changes according to the increase in flow. Well, that loss of load is something that we then had to feed into the software. With the subsequent increase in consumption, we extrapolated this to tables and also presented the results for the software. Great, thank you. You also mentioned radon, but as an additional contaminant. That's got nothing to do with filters, because it depends very much on which league we're playing in, with the differences between gas and particles. Andres, I'll answer the question if that's okay. Well, they're different, but it's true that they are closely related to the ventilation flow and also the conditions in the property. So at the end, with good ventilation, with good air renewal, we can eliminate excess particles and also control radon levels, which will not only come through these different areas in the property, but as was mentioned in our presentation, also due to the actual materials that are used. For this reason, it's not so much related to the filter, but also with the number of renewals that we do in ventilation terms. So ventilation is a clear tool that we have to use. Thank you very much, Alvaro and Andres. The next question is for Jorge Sanabria from FACRO. Okay, thank you very much, Jorge, for telling us about this product. I've got a personal doubt. You talked about a window, but I'm not sure if it's the U window that was installed or exactly how it was the installed one. In this case, it was the installed window. We did take into account transmittance that's contributed by the actual opening as a whole. And there, the glazing work is crucial. The window is one thing. And then with the kit and the specific type of accessories, Well, that's the way that we can achieve that parameter that I presented in my presentation to ensure that we have optimum opening values. You also mentioned that exterior solar accessories like awnings or blinds are deployed automatically depending on radiation conditions or the temperature. You can program these. But is this done automatically without the need for it being a smart home, or does the home have to be a smart home to be able to do this? Yes, this happens automatically. It's very simple. It's the actual solar panel that is included with and also a remote control. Well, that's sufficient for the accessory to work autonomously. You can also control this manually using the remote control, but we also have the option in our projects that, these solar accessories are very important. We also have a Wi-Fi version. Even if we're not at home, then you can activate it. You can just access the app on a smartphone via any internet connection, and even raise or lower the blinds or awning in different places in the property in the home, providing full control over solar radiation, which can have an impact on any of the openings, in this case, in the roof in our project. Thank you.
Now, I'm going to move to Ana Maria Montiel and Ana Sanchez, and I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. Iñaki del Prim is asking us, was the reasons for choosing the light wooden frame closings as part of an element of your building? What advantages did you find for that particular selection, and why did you choose them? Well, to tell you the truth, there wasn't a disadvantage because timber is good, and we actually wanted to build it all with timber, but timber was very expensive. So we asked our clients to make an extra effort uh, to pay extra. And you pay extra, but it's worthwhile because it gives you better quality, and that's what we say at all conferences. But we invested a lot of money in the construction works because traditional bad quality building is expensive, isn't it? Already. And when we told them about the standard, they liked it because that's the usual case. And we were able to convince them because they were very, very pleased with the results. But we have to remember that it was a very difficult time for prices like these. But our clients were ready to take on passive house standards. And with the company with whom we've done the development, because they never threw in the towel, we finally saw that we had the opportunity of doing these structures in timber, including them in the concrete structure. And it was for two reasons. One of the most important ones is because timber is biodegradable, and we're extremely interested as a result to use it as a construction material. And the thickness is much less than if you use ceramic materials. So the possibility of building with this material is far better than with others. In this case, we used a concrete structure, but this time and we did it in the concrete structure, but this time with a new project that we're developing, we're going to do it on the outside. Ana Sanchez, you've talked to us about airtightness, and we found it extremely interesting because you explained how the fluid membrane favors the situation so there are no losses in the tenant structures. So is this true, or could you tell us what's happening? Well, whenever there's pressurization, there's going to be some type of loss. But it's also true that just like we use airtight wiring and materials, when you use these types of materials, once you perforate, you make sure that everything is more compact and sealed, and therefore it avoids losses. But have you carried out trials? Have you done trials of airtightness before and after perforation? Yes, we've done tests prior, particularly at on the board. So we've tested them on the board, seeing how you should apply each one of the membranes. And yes, we did. We studied it in depth before moving on to the construction process. Because we wanted to make sure which was the best one. And in fact, in the first project, we actually worked with 3 or 4 different panels, and we did it before adding the membrane, when we put the membrane, and then after it had been drilled, and the results were really good, and we could be clearly seen in the resulting figures. So we did do that. Well, congratulations then, and thank you very much. Christina. Hello, good afternoon. Thank you very much for your presentation. There are people in the messaging program saying that they're extremely grateful for how interesting your presentation was, and that it was very educational, because it's good to be reminded how important the first decisions you make in a project are, and how much they weigh on the final project. It's quantifiable, and it's important. It's an important effort that you've made, and we're very grateful for that. And we wanted to ask you, how do you make sure that a client gives priority to these decisions and finds them more important than, external aesthetic issues? Well, there are clients that have these ideas really, really clear in their minds. Some of them are a bit more critical. So the clients who come from the beginning, who know what they want, is going to be easier to work with them. The problem is when you have a customer or client, particularly when we're working as consultants for projects, and they have an initial project and you want to include passive house. Well, you have to tell them that you're going to have to increase the price, and it's a bit more difficult, but it's not a good argument, because what you're saying is that passive house is expensive and costs money, and it's not that. What you have to do is educate the client. And I think we've said this before very often, because if you do things well from the beginning, then you won't need to have extra costs at the end. But the problem is that you have to start including these ideas and concepts from the beginning of the design process. And sometimes it's difficult because people want windows in one particular place and you have to put them in another one to apply the standard, and it requires a certain negotiation. You need lots of prior training. That's important. You need information, increasing awareness of the clients, because if you're working with designers, you need to tell them from the beginning what you want to avoid additional costs in the end. Well, with that conviction, I'm sure you're going to be able to create a sphere, I'm sure, and a factor. Iñaki, Fernando, thank you very, very much for your wonderful presentation. It's been wonderful to see the project that you've developed.
Okay, it's wonderful to see everyone pulling together in the same direction. I found it very interesting to hear about the performance of CLT. These type of boards. Had you carried out, for example, prior tests with this type of system, the cross-laminated timber boards? Well, thank you very much for the invitation, and congratulations for the Congress. I expect you're referring to the question of the brackets and also the cracks. Okay, in this case, the CLT work was completed in the month of February, and SATE started to be installed after the summer in September. And in Madrid, well, you can imagine the temperatures were very high in September at that time of the year, with very low relative humidity and also very strong exposure to the sun. Well, these problems began to concern us. And in the study that we carried out, in the test that we carried out to test the manufacturer's specifications regarding the airtightness of the panels, well, these panels, if I remember correctly, were 10 millimeters, 100 millimeters, sorry, 100 millimeters and more. And in our case, the majority of the panels on our side were 80 millimeters. So we really didn't have any guarantee there. And since we did not have a guarantee, and we had to sort of give away some control in this project, the 3 blower tests carried out in the strategically selected apartments, well, also trying to ensure that those apartments presented all of the features that we really needed to test, well, the test results were actually fairly good. Although we didn't test all of the apartments, we were able to move forward with a guarantee that things were going to work okay, and that in logical terms, the construction work had been carried out correctly. And another question for you, another question which came up in the chat. Iñaki del Prim asked whether, in addition, with regards to the wooden blinds, you'd also taken any other measures to deal with overheating, or whether you'd monitored the building in any special way to manage this problem of overheating. Well, this is Iñaki here. I'll answer this question. Well, fortunately, the building faces south. And in general, there was natural shading, which was very, very favorable on the southern side of the building. So with that shading and also the blinds, well, it's efficient. Actually, last year, the first monitoring system was installed to monitor energy consumption. And in this way, we were able to monitor air quality, monitoring the quality of the air as well as CO2 levels, and also readings regarding suspended particles. And we're also going to monitor water consumption in addition to photovoltaic production consumption, which is fairly intense in this building. So for me, the great unknown regarding these buildings, or the big problem, is that everything that you calculate is one thing, but in practical terms, the reality is often very different. So you have to try to ensure that the reality is as close to the calculations that we made. The building's started to operate now, and it's going to be working. And again, this is something we'll discover. We'll have to see exactly what the results are after 1 year, and also report back on these minimum reporting values, minimums of 25, 30 euros in terms of heating, cooling, electricity savings. And in terms of production, we'll have to look at how we can intelligently manage the excess energy that we have in the building at times when the building's not consuming, to achieve maximum photovoltaic energy or storage, for example, or see how we can manage when the building is not being used. So the idea is to ensure smart management of energy and monitoring. We're going to do this, and hopefully for next year or even 2 years' time, when we'll have some historical records to present, we can come back to you and present another speech here at the conference. We're looking forward to that next year. Thank you very much.
And to conclude, we're going to go with the M-Price presentation by Mario Reich. Mario, at the beginning of your presentation, I was thinking, because you said that the motto of your company was bread for all. So I was thinking that we should say very soon, passive house for all, shouldn't we? Congratulations. Congratulations for the wonderful initiative you've carried out. Thank you for your determination in making all of your supermarkets, both new and some of the full ones, to be energy efficient with passive house standards. And we had a few questions with respect to what you've talked to us about, that you heated with a gas installation. We were wondering whether you find the same regulatory legal problems we have, because we have certain standards where you have to ventilate specifically where the gas equipment is, and this contradicts the airtightness of a passive house. So have you had any problems with regulations of this nature?
Hi from Austria to all of you hearing us. No, we have no problems with regulation the temperature of the inner in the market. Also, there is no problem that is known to us.
Yes. And when it comes to challenges and difficulties and logistics as a company, what advantages have you find? What returns on the investments you have made in converting your facilities into passive house have you seen?
We have a point of return about 5 to 7 years. It's always divisible about the building it is. When it is built of concrete, it's fairly earlier, but in the middle of the time, it's to 5 to 7 years. Actually, it's always necessary to be a good building from the architect, that the windows are on the correct position, that not the sun comes in and heats the building in the summer to a high temperature.
Mario, I was referring more than to the economic advantages, which you have told us that are very, very clear in your presentation. I was thinking about the advantages you obtain compared to other companies, because you're showing that you have social corporate responsibility in your facilities because they are totally passive house. So has that given you any other types of advantages?
We have the same price for one bottle of milk as the others, and there are no advantages. It's always marketing.
Well, I would go and do shopping in your supermarkets instead of another supermarket. It's because, of the added advantages. Thank you, Mario. It was wonderful to read your presentation and your initiative. And when we switch the microphones off without anybody listening out, we would like to know how you turn stale bread into eau de vie, into liquor. Yes. Well, we have completed the block. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Please don't leave, because now there will be a presentation of a visit to a building, and afterwards, Bruno Gutierrez is going to give us some brand new information, which I think you're all going to enjoy very, very much. Thank you very much for your attention. Good afternoon.